One of the most important things that I think for us is to get their perspective of what their expectations were from the very beginning. And so I'm going to ask them to share their stories of before they started ABA, what was their expectation not only for behavior analysis, but for their behavior analysts?
So going into ABA for us, I mean, so, you know, this is a decade ago.
12 years ago.
Yeah, when Abby was first diagnosed, and just like everything else with autism related then, like it just wasn't as mainstream as it is now. So, you know, ABA therapy, that was pre-insurance time. So it was, you guys were all witch doctors and this was pseudoscience, and like we had no idea, honestly, what to expect, like what this involved. And it's funny, a memory came up yesterday on Facebook from 4 years ago, Abigail feeding herself for the first time. Remember that? So we're at a restaurant, first time actually making it through a plate, like feeding herself. And you know, you talk about like changes from day to day, you know, but that feels like yesterday. I mean, it doesn't feel like it was that long ago. So you know, those advancements now, and she's like putting away groceries and helping make food, you know, not just feeding herself now. So this is, going into it though, I think back then it might be a little different than it is now. I don't know, because we haven't had, you know, a new experience now, obviously. But back then, yeah, you guys were weird people.
Well, and I remember the day, so like Asa said, we had Abigail diagnosed 12 years ago, so there was no insurance. They weren't covering anything. So I called every company in town, and they were like, yeah, well, we're going to do this assessment, and that's going to be $800, and then you're going to pay us $125 per hour. And I'm like, these people are crazy. Like, do they think we're rich? And so we didn't do it. And then we found a private, a teacher who did ABA therapy in-home. We paid her out of pocket. But the problem is Abby couldn't even sit at a table at that point. Like, we were just trying to corral her. We were in survival mode. And so we're like, yeah, this ABA stuff, this is not working. So it wasn't until a few years later that we actually started looking into it again and getting ourselves educated. And I remember when we went in for her initial assessment, Brandy had everything set up so nice and the clinic looked pretty. And she was like, yeah, I don't think this is gonna work. And she started putting everything away. And I was like, okay, so they're thinking outside of the box. Like, you can even do an assessment like you're not used to. But I was definitely skeptical because, you know, at the beginning there was some hard transitions, and Abigail wasn't necessarily loving her therapist coming all the time. Now she's a teenager, so some days she likes it, some days she doesn't. Autism does not take the teenager sassy girl attitude out of anything. But it has been the #1 thing that our family could have added to her life, because she's made so much progress with ABA.